Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast once again. This is episode 124 entitled, How Do We Put Our Prices Up? It was published on Thursday the 18th of April 2019. My name's Nathan Wrigley from pictureandword.co.uk, a small web development agency based in the north of England, and I will be joined later by David Wormsley from davidwormsley.com because today it's one of our discussion episodes. I know that quite a few people like these discussion episodes and we try to do them as often as possible. Just before we begin, a few things to mention. If you wouldn't mind going to the wpbuilds.com website and then using the links at the top. For example, the first link is the subscribe link and it will allow you to keep in touch with all that we're doing over at WP Builds. You can sign up to 2 newsletters, the first of which alerts you if we put out a new podcast episode every Thursday and a news item on a Monday. The second form allows you to sign up to our alerts emails, and that will be a plain text email as soon as I find out if there is a price reduction on a WordPress plugin, theme, or something like that. You'll also be able to join us on iTunes, subscribe to us on the Google Podcast app. If you leave any reviews on those platforms, we'd be most grateful. Then you can join our Facebook group, which has over 1,900 members now. It's a very friendly place to be, talking about all things WordPress. And you can find our YouTube channel and get messenger updates and so on and so forth. So that's a good place to go. The next one I want to mention is /deals. And if you go to that page, you're going to find heaps and heaps of deals on WordPress products and services. If you're in the mind for buying something, it's maybe worth checking that out because we've got all sorts of coupon codes and you never know what you're requiring might well be there. /contribute if you want to join us on the podcast and show something that you've been working on, something that you've done recently, something that you're proud of. I'd gladly share my screen with you. We can record it and then distribute it to our community. And finally, /advertise if you would like to advertise on the WP Builds podcast and get your product or service in front of a wider audience. Speaking of which, the WP Builds podcast is brought to you today by the Page Builder Framework. Do you use a page builder to create your websites? The Page Builder Framework is a mobile, responsive and lightning-fast WordPress theme that works with Beaver Builder, Elementor, Breezy and other page builders. With its endless customization options in the WordPress customizer, it's the perfect fit for you and your agency. Go to wp-pagebuilderframework.com today. And WP Admin Pages Pro. Have you ever needed to add custom admin pages to your client's WordPress dashboard but couldn't find the right tools to do it? WP Admin Pages Pro is here for you. Create beautiful admin pages using your favorite page builders such as Beaver Builder, Elementor, Breezy, and more. Check it out at wp-adminpagespro.com. And we thank all of our sponsors for their support of the WP Builds podcast. Okay, let's get stuck into our podcast today, shall we? This episode's entitled, How Do We Put Our Prices Up? And it's just discussion with David and I. We talk about all of the things that we've been doing recently in order to actually charge our customers, what platforms do we use and so on. And then a bit of a discussion about the kinds of things that we've been thinking about when we've had to raise our prices. As always, we've not got the perfect answer. We're just working it out as much as you're working it out. But it's a nice discussion nevertheless, and I hope you enjoy it.
And today we're discussing how do we put up our prices. Nathan, I suggested this one, but as we've realized, we've no idea what this means because most of us are charging by the project. But I guess, we all do something that's hourly in some form or another, or we have some kind of service like care plans. So we've got something to talk about.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And actually, it was interesting talking just before this that you've had to do this a few times, which is kind of new to me. So I guess I'm getting ideas from you.
Well, I've not really done a great deal of this. So to be honest with you, I think it would be nice to talk about the sort of how we approach it, but also the technical details. And I, like everybody else, I've got my way of doing it, and it works for me, and it's absolutely not ideal. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody particularly, but it works for me, and I've kind of got used to it. So there's that. Then there's a discussion about the payment gateways and how that kind of stuff works, and in my case, trying to understand that, because I've not really had to grapple with that. Should we just break it down and talk about how we actually bill our clients to begin with? How do you go about getting money out of clients?
Yeah, well, I've moved now almost entirely to productized services, so they are paying for those. And I said that I didn't really need to put up prices. I have all the way along the line. And in fact, I've just done it recently with both my build days and my care plan. But I have just taken, so what they're doing, the client has to go to my WooCommerce shop and pay for it before any work's done. And for those things that are on subscription, I've got the WooCommerce subscription plugin working, going to Stripe. And anybody who's, say, gone on the care plan earlier will continue to be charged at that price. And anybody who comes in new will get charged yearly, in my case, on the new price. So we have the grandfathering going on. That's the same with many of the WordPress plugins.
Okay. Yeah, we can get to that in a minute, and whether that's sustainable and what have you. I'll tell you what, I've got a variety of things that I do. I have the most common one for me, and this is a surprise, I suppose, in a way, is email. I very often I've got a platform which I'm transitioning away from, but I can't really talk about the new one too much because I haven't really used it. So I'll talk about the one that I've used for many years. And it's a self-hosted PHP script called Pancake app. You can go and find it, I would have thought, on the internet. And it enables me to get them to pay via a button and that connects to Stripe. So let's say there's an invoice for £150. The invoice will say, here's the total, and there's pay by credit card. You can change the text so that it says pay by whatever. I'm increasingly thinking that pay by Stripe might be the way to word it, because I think Stripe is now at that maturity that people actually know what it is, as opposed to before it sounded better to say pay by credit card. And then there's a PayPal button, and also there's just underneath that, it says what my bank details are. In the UK, we have a sort code and an account number, and you have to get both of those details right, and you then have to go onto your own online banking, type in my account and sort number, and pay me. And oddly, that is the way that the vast majority of my clients wish to pay. They wish to pay directly into my bank account. So they don't use PayPal, they don't use Stripe. They task somebody each month, presumably in their accounting department, to go into their online banking, type in the amount of money that they owe me, and click send. The burden for that, for me, is that I have to go and check and manually reconcile all of that. But I actually quite like doing that. It gives me a couple of hours each month away from my normal tasks. I just sit and go through my bank details and look down the in column and just match things up. And if I see that something hasn't been paid, I simply just send them another email in my queue of emails, and they receive that, and hopefully they pay it. And if always they've been paid. I've never had one, really. I've got no complaints about this, where somebody's endlessly never paid. They always get paid. I mean, sometimes they're a bit tardy, but usually not. So yeah, kind of like the old-fashioned days. I get paid mostly by the bank. But in the UK, we also have this system called Go Cardless, which is a direct debit mandate app. And it allows you to set up a recurring or one-off payment. And the fees are ridiculously low. So as of about a year and a half ago, anybody coming onto my care plan, because that pricing is utterly predictable, it's going to be the same every single year or month, I set that up and they join onto it, and then it just automates it in the same way that Stripe would, but the fees are significantly lower. So I do that. Now, the other thing that I've never really had to do is change the price on the fly. So my care plans have only really been up and running for, let's say, a couple of years. And they are the same price today as they were a couple of years ago. And in terms of the technical details of how I would actually go around changing those, I'm really not that sure. Do you have experience of having to change electronic payments that are sort of scheduled, recurring payments?
Yeah, well, I did a classic mistake when I first set up the care plans. I actually set it to expire after 1 year. So the first people came and I realized, their plan had expired. They had to sign up again for a new one because I hadn't set it to never end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as far as I understand, and I've not explored this because it's been a simple process to put the care plan up a little bit on one of them. Because, yeah, as I just described, the new people get their price and the old people stay as they were. What I haven't explored, I'm sure it is possible for me to manually change the amount that they're supposed to be paying on the earlier agreement. I could put up the other people if I wanted to, I guess, but I haven't checked it out.
So we think, although neither of us actually know, that it's possible. Let's go with Stripe as an example. We think it's possible to take a £100 per month subscription, let's call it that, and without informing the clients, we could increase that to 110. Now, presumably, although again we're both ignorant of this, that would trigger some kind of email to the client to say this is going up, or can you just do it arbitrarily and not tell anybody anything?
Yeah, do you know what? I should have checked this one out because I don't know. It would seem wrong, wouldn't it, for me to be able to change the payment amount?
Yes,
but essentially, as far as Stripe's concerned, with WooCommerce, it's just Stripe's just doing what WooCommerce tells it to do, and I tell WooCommerce what to do. So I can't see any reason why I couldn't do it. But it would be wrong, wouldn't it, for me to just put the prices up without telling somebody?
Yes, you might have to go into your email client and just tell them all, presumably one at a time, or on some kind of autoresponder, just tell them all that this is going to happen. And how would you handle that then? Would you get them to? Would you break the connection between all of your current subscriptions and then say, please come back and sign up because the old plans are going away? Or would you rather try to increase them with an email and assume that no response to that email is authorization to go ahead?
Yeah, really dangerous one, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is a really good debate because I haven't really thought about it. My principle at the moment is, and whether it's sustainable, is to never do that. Always to let people come in at the agreed amount. If I should be forced to do it, I think my gut at the moment would be just to end that agreement and make them go sign up. So they had to go to the landing page, which explained what they were signing up to again.
Right.
And just keep things clear. But maybe some people I might know better, and I could have an email discussion with them about what we're doing and say, is it okay to do that?
It'd be interesting if anybody's a Stripe expert, if they could give us the lowdown on how to do this. Because if this were possible, presumably part of your terms and conditions that and I'm, again, not putting the cart before the horse, but I'm presuming they have to tick a box on your checkout page to say, I've read the terms and conditions. You could include such terms and conditions in your, in that checkout procedure, such that you are entitled, with email being delivered and sent out, to put the prices up and make the assumption that unless they refuse those payments or jump off your plan, that this is all going to be acceptable.
Yeah. Don't you think it's wrong that I didn't have on those initial people any terms and conditions anyway for them to sign, but I always feel, everybody feels cheated, don't they? If somebody points you to the terms and conditions, we were allowed to do that.
Yes.
So I would avoid that with, to the utmost, I would avoid doing that kind of thing to a client because it would throw things out. So I don't know. I still think, to be honest, there's another discussion. Do we really ever need to put our prices up? Are things not becoming more cheap or more efficient? Is the cost of, say, our hosting services even getting a little bit less over time?
Yeah, I guess if you take a snapshot of just a couple of years, which perhaps is what we're doing here, because I'm talking about, I have just mentioned like care plans, which I've only been doing for a few years, really. I've felt absolutely no need in that time to bump the prices up. The prices are today what they were a couple of years ago, and I can still. they still make great sense to me in that they are reasonably profitable at those price points. But presumably, unimaginable though it is, let's say that all of my clients are still with me in 10 years' time, then at that point, the value of the pound, goodness help us with the Brexit, what's happening with Brexit soon and all of that seems to be fluctuating at the moment. But let's say that sterling is worth, you can buy half as much now in 10 years as you can with, a pound, which seems to be the pattern. The value of money decreases by halves over a 10-year cycle. Then they're not going to make sense, and I will need to put them up. So I would say that no, at some point I'm going to have to face this. I think I'm not going to get away with this forever. But my clients probably won't be with me for that long anyway, so it might be moot anyway.
But do you not think maybe, and this is the difference between your care plan and mine doesn't take up my time, where it's only, if you like, servicing the technology side of things on the hosting. So those costs are not spiraling up. So and because it's kind of scalable, it actually, gets more profitable the more people are there. So because it's not my hours. So I'm thinking that I probably wouldn't need to do that the same as you might, because of your hourly rate will need to go up.
Yes. Yeah, we should say that as part of my care plan, some of the packages, you just get a bit of time. I'll sit with you on the phone or whatever. So yeah, good point. Yeah, in your case, maybe as the price of this technology, hosting and so on, drops, which it has. I mean, it's incredible what you can get now. I know you're more of an expert about this than I am, because you keep your eye on this, because I mostly have my own server and I know what that costs, but not really keeping an eye on the market as a whole, DigitalOcean and so on. But yeah, incredible. So maybe you're right. Maybe the price will just continue to fall such that your 10, 20, 50 pounds a month will still be profitable for you in the future. Question is, the old economic argument of charge what the market can bear. Would you put your prices up simply to keep them feeling cheap?
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what? Just talking about generally putting up prices, my colleague needed to do this twice since I've known her. And because she does odd jobs for people, she's kind of had to let them know my prices from January or whatever are going up by £5 an hour. And I don't think she's had any pushback from any of this. Her accountant said you really should do it, and her accountant is one of her customers. But
that's a great that works.
I know, they're fabulous, and it's just interesting. It made me wonder as well, the other side of it. Do we actually sometimes need to put our prices up to show our value in the eyes of our clients over time?
Well, this is the mantra, isn't it? We hear this all the time in these business communities and Facebook groups and online courses, constantly putting your prices up and making sure that you've vetted the clients and such so that you can charge these maximum prices. I don't know. Yes, I suppose that's true. There's definitely truth in that. And again, as we've said before, neither you or I are trying to be millionaires. We're just, enough is okay. So yeah, my prices haven't really changed, but they probably should. But I'm not going to try and compete with like the rock stars in this industry, and claim that I'm at, I don't know, £800 an hour or anything bizarre like that, because I don't think my clients will wear it anyway. But having said that, I do less than I used to, but occasionally I'll do like an hourly rate. So they might phone up and want a particular job, and I'll say, yeah, I'll put you in the calendar and we'll do it. Those prices have gone up, and I've never, ever, ever had anybody say, at the point where I say, and it's such and such an hour, nobody's ever said no. What are you on about? Everybody's always thought that was reasonable. So that's always worked for me. And then very occasionally I've also said, look, you're asking me to do something in 24 hours and really I've got a week's worth of work ahead of you. I'm going to charge you my normal rate plus such and such an hour. And nobody's ever balked at that either, because in the UK we have this system where, and I presume this is still true, if you work over a certain amount of hours, your employer is obliged to pay you more per hour. So the same would be true for me. You're making me work more. You're demanding that I do something urgently. So I'm going to charge you more commensurate to that extra work. And nobody seems to be bothered by that.
Oh, I didn't actually know about that. There's a 48 rule, isn't it? If you're required to work over 48 hours or something, you have to agree to that fact
Yes.
in
Yeah.
the UK.
And I think there's also certain days, isn't there? Things like bank holidays, as we have in the UK. And if your employer compels you to work on those days, I think they have to pay you 1.5 times your normal rate. Again, that could be horribly outdated knowledge. That certainly was the case when I was much younger. Those kind of figures were always bandied around, and perhaps it would even be like 2 times on Christmas Day or something like that.
Yeah. When I was young, I always used to work on Sundays and any of the bank holidays because I didn't have family commitments and I could earn much more, so absolutely. Do you know what? I think that's really valuable, that idea that you can put up and explain it, that you're going to put up an hourly rate for a job because of the basis of your work that week. I think it's perfectly reasonable, isn't it? A really handy tip, I think.
Yeah, it's really rare, to be honest. Most people, not only do they very rarely come to me and say this is very urgent, because most people, they're working and they realise that you can't be asked to do it. But it has happened occasionally, and they've been willing to stomach it because they need it right away. And I think that's just completely justified. If they want something 24 hours from now and it's an absolute must, you're going to be doing extra work and you're going to be staying up. So, you get a bit of a bonus, a bit of a pat on the back for doing that. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah.
We're going to have people screaming at us saying that we should never be revealing hourly rates anywhere, but I'm not sure how that's possible. To do that when it's odd jobs.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very open about the hourly rate. And that has crept up over time. And because I issue, the way that my business works, I'm talking to these people. We're on the phone. We're in the email. There's no surprises. I'm not trying to catch anybody out. I'm not trying to trick anybody with the amount of hours I've worked or anything like that. They, I'll say to them, it's this, and wait to see if they think that's okay. And as I said, nobody's ever criticised it because I don't charge a crazy amount of money. So it's completely reasonable. And in many cases, it's probably less than my clients are earning each hour. So they probably think, well, yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
And absolutely, I mean, in some ways, my prices have gone down. I've started to put them up a little bit, but in the true sense, from the client's perspective, when we used to charge for those first jobs, it took us longer to do. I was working with the Genesis framework. I didn't have Beaver Builder as my page builder, which speeded things up significantly. So I was charging them based on my idea of what the hours would be. But for them, it was just this kind of project figure. Yeah. Now, if I say my 1 day builds, it's much less than that project figure. But what they don't know is that it's just became a lot easier, a lot more efficient for me to sort of build their sites.
We often find ourselves in these conversations, especially it seems like more than ever, of putting our prices up all the time, getting the maximum. I've always taken a slightly different approach in that if it works for me, I'm happy with that. If the figure that I get, if it works for me, and I'm not living in London and I don't have great massive jetting off holidays all the time, so I can live on probably a less than many people listening to this can. But we're always talking about putting our prices up to the point where I wonder if people get frustrated with when they're putting out proposals and things, and they add 10% or they double their price and so on. Do they always get accepted, or do you start to feel I'm getting knocked back here? Okay, right, now I realise my price has gone too high. This is silly. People are not using me because my prices are going up. I wonder at what point you start to rein that in and say, well, I've taken this too far. There's no fresh work now.
Yeah. And I think when I started off, I was quite happy to take any work because I knew that was my position. And I think in some ways there's some merit to overworking and doing it too cheaply in the first place when you're picking up clients, because once you have picked them up and they trust you and know you to be, true, you can kind of increase your rates without, I think, too much difficulty. Obviously my colleague did, and obviously even though it's not so obvious, I have done as well. But I think I'd rather get the person in and have that trust than try and sort of gamble it in the early days and up my price. Just maybe I'm too cautious.
No, I know what you mean, in that the idea, it's very beguiling, isn't it? The idea of, making a really great proposal, putting together an absolutely fantastic pitch, positioning yourself really well, working out that the client does have enough money to pay you a decent fee. And then at the moment where you actually work out what it's worth, you decide, okay, it'll be a little bit more than this. I want more profit out of this. Let's add another 1,000. Let's add another 3,000, whatever, in order that there's more profit in this for me. Sometimes that's going to fail. Sometimes it'll work, but to me, and with all my clients, it tends to be a long-standing relationship. I build something, and then we often keep that relationship going. So by doing it not tremendously expensive in the beginning, I'll win that because price is significantly important to people. But they're still with me 5 years later. They're still coming back every couple of months for a little task and a little tweak here and a little tweak there. So my reduced fee at the outset ends up being a considerably bigger fee in the long run. Now, obviously, it would be ideal if I could charge a very big fee at the outset and still keep them for 10 years, but that's just the position I take. I'm happy with that. I can sleep easy at night with that knowledge.
It's our mental blocks. And I guess my mental block is that I'm realizing I'm dealing with other businesses, and I think, because I'm always seeing it from my perspective, that they're a little bit like me. They're not like the usual consumer, but will likely to be looking at the bottom line on the true value of something in terms of cost, because they're running a business and they need to separate their personal life and their business money orientated life. So I expect that they'll be analysing this, where probably truthfully they're not. They still behave like usual consumers. So value pricing probably works really well. Yeah. But I'm still stuck with it. And I guess I have to be me, and that's really the ultimate thing, isn't it?
Yeah. The sort of myth I think about this though is that, especially, you can't help it on the internet and on the telly and in your Facebook groups and all of that kind of stuff. There's always people who are incredibly successful at this stuff. They can put their prices up and keep putting them up and keep putting them up. And it almost feels like it's a never-ending cycle, amazing success. But then, of course, there's only one Ronaldo. There are some people that can just do this stuff. They've got incredible skills. They've got an amazing gift of the gab. They can carry this stuff off. They've got everything going for them, and they pull it off. And then they, rightly, I suppose, blow their own trumpet. But it's not probably going to work for all of us, because we can't all be fabulously well paid for doing the same job. That just can't work. So I don't think there's anything too demoralising in the fact that your prices might creep up, as opposed to doubling every 6 months, Do
you ever feel that in the back of your mind you need to have a story, if you like, something that why you justify your prices as they are, your hourly rate?
What do you mean?
Do you have? Well, in a way, whatever I charge, I think to myself, I have to charge this because half of my time is on unpaid work, learning about our industry. I have to do so much training. So I have that little thing in the back of my mind. Should I ever be asked? I don't obviously want to push. Well, I do, actually. I do want to tell the clients, I'm really cheap because you don't know about all of what I do that they get paid for. I would like to say that, but I know it would be stupid.
Yes.
But I have it in my head, this sort of justification, if you like.
Do you still do that, or do you feel mostly now that you can pull off the projects that are coming your way without that learning curve?
Oh yeah, no, but it's not the learning curve for that particular project. I just think in general, to do our job, we need to put that amount of time aside. So we just being in this industry means that we can only kind of work, well, maybe not half the time, but we are restricted in how long we can work and still remain current and useful in the industry.
Yeah, no is the truth of it. I don't include that in the pricing. Funnily enough, I did actually have that conversation with a few clients right at the beginning when I was starting doing this kind of stuff. So this is like years ago with Drupal and things. I would explicitly draw attention to the fact that if you went with me, you wouldn't be paying for me to learn it, because I understood it already. So I made that a bit of a thing. And then in the end, I realised that probably wasn't a great conversation to be getting into. So I've dropped making any reference to learning or any of that long ago. And so I suppose my pricing does just simply reflect, and I'm not very clever about all this stuff. Basically, I have to look at my bank balance at the end of the month and work out, does it allow me to pay for all of the things that I need, plus a little bit of saving for holidays and so on and so forth. And I know what that figure is. And so I know that if the incoming work meets that figure, great. If it doesn't, I've got to get more for next month. And so it goes. There's nothing... no, I'm not thinking about learning time or anything. I'm just trying to get my monthly average figure traveling through my bank account each month. That's all I'm doing. So, I'm not building an agency. I'm not even trying to build an agency. I'm not doing any of that. So, no, very straightforward in my case.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't communicate any of this. It's just my internal conversation about when I'm pricing what I'm considering in that, the fact of how much time is literally unpaid time. And that has to be figured into, what I do charge for my hours. But I guess it's something that a client wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
In terms of looking at our hourly rates.
No, I know what you mean. So no, I'm not that complicated. I'm not doing it like that. I'm just doing it until it's finished, and then the money, the amount of money has to equal what it has to equal. Because I was just telling you before we started this conversation, I was working last night till 1:30 in the morning. There's no reason on earth I should be doing that, but it just felt to me that I wanted a bit more time off today, and quite a few of the tasks I could just be cracking on with. So everybody in my house had sort of turned in, and just thought I'll go for it. And that's fine. It just allows me to do it. I'm not going to be charging extra for that because it was inconvenient. It's just a roundabout way, and it'll work out in the end. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I like the fact that you can just put up your prices as you choose anyway without issue, because they get basically you're almost giving them a proposition for every job that's done. You're sending them an invoice and they decide whether they're going to pay this in advance.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, there is quite a bit of that. Like I say, far less than I ever used to. It used to be that my work was all really mostly driven by the clock. So I would log the amount of time it took to do this job and log the amount of time to do that job. But now that I've got the care plans going and things, there's less of that. But yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I really do enjoy that sort of time doing something a bit different, which is looking through the bank and getting a general feel of how much has gone in this month and whether it's been paid on time and things. Because that also gives you it does give you a sense of which clients are, in inverted commas, behaving. Because, if you are manually checking it and you're not just relying on autoresponders to go out because this person hasn't paid and that's just all dealt with, I genuinely know in 90% of the cases who are my clients that just immediately pay it because I can match it up. There's the invoice date. Good grief. About less than 12 hours later, that was paid. That's fabulous. That client is great. And it happens month in, month out. This one over here, the invoice goes out and I know because I click the button on the send. I've had to send them 2 emails. So I know that they're a bit more hard work. So maybe they're one to in the future think about carrying on with. And maybe you're the one that I want to put more time into because I can see that we're working well together.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I don't think we answered our question, did we, really? We just put them up as we need to.
Yes.
There's no issue, is the answer.
There was one thing that I wanted to say about it. I got sidetracked, actually, and it was about the Go Cardless direct debit mandate. That is a system, like I said, in the UK that allows you to do all of this. I think that direct debit mandate specifically allows you to put the prices up and down arbitrarily without getting back in touch with them. Because that's what it is. So, as an example, in the UK, everybody will pay for their gas and electricity and all of this with a direct debit. And because that's a movable feast, in the winter months, that price will skyrocket because the gas is on. And in the summer months, it'll drop through the floor because you're not heating the house. And so the company are allowed to charge you what is the correct amount month in, month out. So that's what you sign up for. It's going to go up a bit. It might go down a bit. It might go back up a bit. So I think that's worth putting in there. But I'm not an expert on that. So there might be caveats.
There may be, I guess it depends on I mean, as I understood it, if you've got a set amount that you agree to with the banks under your direct debit, that amount they can't change, was my understanding, but they can change when they take that money. And
Okay.
they often have.
Right.
And that's really can be annoying. You agreed that it goes out on the 15th of every month or something, but they can, decide either side to pull that money out.
Yes. Yeah,
but
interesting. If there's any direct debit knowledgeable people, I'd love to know, because I honestly can't face reading that documentation too closely.
Oh, excellent. Oh, I think we've come to an end, haven't we?
I would entirely agree. That's a good length for the podcast, I think. So, as always, we've not helped you in any way, shape or form, but we have addressed the subject of how do we put our prices up, but we've delivered zero results. But nevertheless, it was nice chatting about it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of WP Builds, David and I nattering on about putting our prices up. As always, please leave some comments in the post, either on the Facebook group or on the post itself. That would be most helpful. We always like responding to those comments, very much indeed. WP Builds is brought to you today by WP and Up. 1 in 4 of us will be directly affected by mental health related illness. WP and Up supports and promotes positive mental health within the WordPress community. This is achieved through mentorship, events, training and counselling. Please help enable WP and Up by visiting wpandup.org/give. Together we can #pressforwards. And we appreciate the support of WP and Up in helping us bring you the WP Builds podcast. Right, that's it for this week. I really hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on Monday for the WordPress Weekly News. And if not, maybe we'll see you next Thursday for the podcast. I will fade in some cheesy music and say bye-bye for now.